All right, and we're rolling, like Joe Rogan, and we're rolling.
What's up, Watson?
What's up, Sean?
What's up, man? Back on the terrace, back on the Azizi podcast.
Back here, one and only Azizi podcast. Man, a little bit of a technical difficulty last time, but we still got 20 minutes out of it.
Yeah, no, it was good. I had a bunch of people watching it and be like,
yeah?
I wanted to hear what you had to say about Tyson. So the people were disappointed, so we got some unfinished business.
All right, man. Let's talk about Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones Jr., man. What do you think?
Well, I was telling you last time, I think it's so funny that it's at Dignity Health Sports Park because at least one of them's probably going to lose both of them in the fight. But, I mean, it's an entertaining fight. It'll get some eyeballs.
No dignity.
There's no other sports really at this time. So, I mean, anything we can get, I think we'll take it. Who do you think wins that one?
So here's what I think about Mike Tyson versus Roy Jones is that, first of all, Roy Jones, man, by the way, he looks like shit. I'm sorry, but on the poster that they did with Mike, I don't know if you've seen it, like Mike looked like a beast, you know, but
yeah,
Roy, but like he looks like he hasn't been sleeping for quite some time. However, he's been in the ring far too often in the past several years than Mike Tyson, because Mike Tyson was in the ring exactly 0 times. Roy Jones was fighting in Russia, and even though he was not successful, he was still there. He was still active, you know.
Yeah, I mean, he's still going through those training camps. His body hopefully remembers, you know, what that's like. I mean, Tyson looks jacked, but I think people see guys that big and they think it's a great idea for a fight. But when you're that jacked, I think it's bad because you have all that extra oxygen you have to get into your muscles. And
if the first 2 rounds or first 3 rounds, Mike Tyson can be Mike Tyson or whatever the shadow of Mike Tyson that he used to be, it's his fight. Roy Jones is out. That's the only thing that we can count on.
Right.
Otherwise, if it goes the distance, I feel like Roy Jones, based on the stamina that he has, will probably get the points, win on points. In reality, I think we're just going to see a bunch of hugging. That's what we're going to see.
Well, they're saying it's an exhibition fight. So, I mean, who knows what that even means? I know if it's sanctioned by an athletic commission, I think maybe that might be a little illegal because you can't go around pre-agreeing to fix fights almost. But we'll see. I mean, I think if everyone's saying Tyson looks good, but they're saying he looks good in 30-second Instagram videos. I mean, that's not how long a boxing match is. If it gets past 2, I definitely got to say Jones has the upper hand there.
You think he's sparring right now? Like during his trainings?
I would say I hope so, but for guys at that age, you almost hope they aren't because it's that little extra bit of damage that's going to set them back.
Headgear or no headgear during the fights? What do you think when the fight happens?
I think they both got egos, so they'll do no headgear. They don't want to tarnish their look.
Fuck it.
I don't think headgear has that much of a difference, though.
You think?
Yeah, as a boxer, when I'm sparring, I prefer not to. I feel like I can move my head a little bit more. So even though my head's not as protected without headgear, I feel like I get hit less because I'm able to move my head more. So that's just me personally. I'm interested to see what they'll do.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, like, I don't know, who would, like, right now, if Mike Tyson goes to sparring, who is he sparring with? Like, who can be his potential, like, sparring partners? Imagine, like, he's probably, like, fighting some kid. Some like Andy Ruiz back in the day, like some one of those kids, like the chubby ones and whatever, so that it's, I don't know, imagine like the feeling of like, okay, Mike Tyson wants to spar you and you like literally sparring with Mike Tyson while Mike Tyson prepares for his freaking real fight. I mean, it is a real fight afterwards.
Even holding mitts for him looks terrifying. I mean, the only guys that are probably good for him in sparring are guys like Holyfield, and they're not going to get in there for free. So
imagine Holyfield's not going to like spar with Tyson. I mean, maybe just as a joke or whatever. But imagine like you're sparring with Tyson, and Mike Tyson like, it's okay, man. Like we're just gonna like we're just gonna play around, man. It doesn't matter anything. I'm not gonna hurt you at all. And then like, pam, 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 and real Mike Tyson, all of a sudden, like, the ego awakens, the beast in him is awake, so then suddenly he's, I'm the most ruthless, like, fucking just like, kills
game
you, obliterates.
over.
I don't know, I feel like that's kind of like the Tyson. I hope no one's gonna get offended. I really wanted to try the Tyson impersonation.
Do it well.
Did it work?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
But, like, yeah, man, like, I feel like that's, and honestly, I would take that. I would take that beating. Like once in a lifetime.
It's a bucket list item, right?
To getting beat up by Mike Tyson. I don't know, man. It's something about him. The thing about Mike Tyson, though, I grew up, like, I'm 29, right? I'm 28. So I really, like, missed the whole Tyson era.
Yeah.
Like, really, like, 2003, whatever. Like, it was, I still remember magazines about him in Russia and Kazakhstan and all of that. But he was already on I remember, like, the article I read when I was 13 while Mike Tyson, like, got his tattoo. And I was like, wow, Tyson got his tattoo, like, on the face. That's so crazy. But like I miss the whole like 80s era, like late 80s, early 90s Tyson, the prime Tyson and all of that, the Buster Douglas fiasco, like so, but somehow still he's exciting. Like even when you watch his past fights, like I'll be honest with you, I'm not a fan of past like or like history fighting or whatever, but like Mike Tyson, when Mike Tyson fights, it's just his movements, his muscle twitches, his like explosions are just like wow, like you still don't see it anywhere. Like no one explodes as Mike Tyson exploded.
No, even guys like Joshua, you see them hitting mitts, and I mean they're probably not going 100%, and maybe Tyson is to kind of hype the fight a little bit, but it's a whole other level. And I mean that's the thing with boxing is it's half maybe skill, maybe less, and everything else in terms of selling a fight just a compelling narrative, and that's what I think Tyson brings to the table. It's just the big question mark: is he good? Is he not? That's what people pay to see.
Yeah, and the interview by what's his name? He was his trainer at once, and then something like the story about his daughter and the gun and whatever. What's his name?
It wasn't Customato.
No, the other one. With his car.
I couldn't.
He's Gwozdik's trainer. Gvozdik retired recently. I forgot. I need to look this up right now. Hold on.
Let's do it.
Like last time, we forgot that Canelo fought Jacobs. That was his last fight.
Yeah,
and
we missed a couple fights after.
Yeah, I was like, oh shit, this is embarrassing.
Saw the box track, and I was like, oh boy.
Yeah. No, but like that's true. Jacobs was fighting Canelo. That's his last fight, I think.
And I think he fought Chavez after that too.
Oh, he did. Oh shit! See,
we missed two fights. We need to get ourselves a Jamie like Joe Rogan has. Now accepting applications.
Teddy Atlas, Teddy Atlas.
Oh, of course.
So during the interview with Joe Rogan, Teddy Atlas said that Mike Tyson had around 3 real fights in his life, and he lost all of the fights. And now I think maybe that's the emotions talking. Maybe there's some personal shit between Teddy Atlas, and there is some personal stuff between that and Mike. But that's what he said. It's like, well, he really had like 3 real fights where it was like, toe-to-toe.
He had a chance of losing.
Yeah, and he lost all of them.
Yeah.
That's what he said, and I was like, well, he's probably like, okay, Teddy, like, I get it, but, like, you're not, you're the greatest in terms of training or whatever, but, like, you cannot just say that, like, it's the thing that people are talking shit about boxers, like, okay, but at the end of the day, the boxer is the one who's going into the ring, and in boxing, you never know, you can lose to the easiest fight ever, because boxing is boxing.
Takes one punch.
One Hail Mary punch, and you're done. But at the end of the day, in the back of my head, I was like, man, maybe it was all an illusion. I don't know. Like, I know how boxers are being developed, and I know that they're being fed, the other fighters that are not as the same caliber just to build them up. But I'm like, I don't know. Sometimes I think about that.
Sure, maybe he got easier fights, but in order for a promoter to look at you and say this is a guy worth building up, he has to see something special in you. And I think you still see something special in Tyson, whether or not he got easier fights. He still had a raw natural ability that was
true. Champion of the world.
And he did well in the Olympics, I believe, right? So there's still some talent there.
No, Tyson skipped the Olympics.
Oh, you're right. I'm thinking of Lennox Lewis.
Yeah,
my bad.
Yeah. I read, and I know that because I read Dougie Fisher, actually the editor-in-chief of the Ring magazine.
Yeah.
Signed a book for me. Like I said, Dougie, can you, like, because we friends, like, I was actually living in America, and I was like, can you give me some of the books that you read? And he actually gave me a bunch of cool books, and one of them was Tyson, Undisputed Truth. He signed it and all that. Was just amazing. I have it. Yeah.
You got to check out Bloor Street Boxing. Their boxing room is like, it's all just Ring magazine covers as their wallpaper from like the 30s and 40s. It's the coolest thing ever. So quick shout out there. But
that's awesome, man. Yeah, I got to check it out. But yeah, in this book, he's basically, excuse me, cheat meal day. I'm like gonna burp all the way through. He's basically so candid about his life, like, and he writes this book as he would tell you his story, like with the F-bombs and all of that. I knew it's gonna fall. Anyways, but like that book is disgusting. Like the way he writes about stuff, all the freaking detail. If you wanna like go through this, and you wanna like, I don't know, see how Tyson mind worked, or like his memories and all of that, what he did and what he's done, and like people around him, read this book. But I'll tell you what, it's not gonna be an enjoyable read. It's a bizarre book, Undisputed Truth by Mike Tyson.
Right. Well, whether you call his fights illusions or not, I guess his attitude's certainly not. So there's something there.
He became a champion in the world. That's the thing. Like he became a champion of the world, I think, when he was 19.
Pretty young, yeah.
Again, maybe I'm mistaken there. I'm not a boxing historian, but yeah, he was the youngest champion of the world till this day. So that says something, regardless of what kind of opposition he had. So
right. I mean, when you win the belt at that age, you're probably not going to have the most normal adulthood. I mean, even look at John Jones in the UFC, won the belt at a very young age, had a lot very young, and It's probably not the best thing for you.
Yeah, I mean, Tyson grew up in a rough neighborhood. He had a rough childhood. He was doing a lot of thieving, burglaring. Like, he actually writes, like, definitely, like, check out his book. He writes in details about all of that. And Cus D'Amato, he says, Cus D'Amato saved my life because he brought me to his house. You know, he adopted me basically, and he gave me the way, the path. That's what I think. You know, like, boxing is like, when people say you don't play boxing, I always think it's such a corny thing to say.
It's true, though. It's life. It's not a sport. It's not a game.
Exactly, though. But, like, it's for the people. It's for people, like, also people say it's a poor man's sport.
Yeah.
Also true. Like, it's for the fighters, you know. If you don't have... You know how expensive the freaking hockey gear is?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like, it's... Every sport, you know, is like, I know, like, my uncle, who is, like, actually younger than me, but he was a professional hockey player. Back in Kazakhstan, and man, like, even in Kazakhstan, gear was like thousands of dollars. Like,
oh, for sure,
crazy.
And boxing's the inverse. I mean, I think it was Sugar Ray who said it's a lot harder to get up to run at 5 a.m. when you're sleeping in silk sheets.
Yeah,
so it's true.
Yeah, man. So definitely, it takes a special kind of person with a special kind of background to say, like, all right, if nothing else, I can do any other sports. I'm gonna go do boxing, and I'm literally gonna put my life on the freaking at risk, you know, every time I go into the ring.
They're going to do that stuff anyway. They might as well get paid, right? If you look at
That's
it that
true.
way.
That's true. And that's why I say, like, when children of boxers decide to become boxers, like Tyson was saying that about his son, like, you know, like, yeah, you got it, but, like, you don't have you don't have that predator instinct, you know.
Look at Chavez. I mean, that's an extreme, but
what do you think about Chavez Jr.?
I don't know. I just don't think he takes the sport as seriously as someone at that level needs to. I mean, he was showing up to training sessions with Freddie Roach high. I mean, you don't do that with Freddie Roach, no matter who you are. And you know, you're not the one in the ring, so you don't want to talk bad about him. But he seems to be pretty quick to sometimes take the easy way out if he thinks it's there.
Yeah, especially with the last fight with Jacobs. But here's the thing, like, he has the talent. He's definitely an elite boxer, but he's just, like, he's not all the way there in terms of being top tier.
Right. Well, he's probably trained by his father, who's a phenomenal boxer. But then again, he doesn't have that top upbringing. He doesn't have that chip on his shoulder, the edge, and that's what you need. That's probably why.
But also, he's on tics lately. Have you seen him on Twitter or Instagram? Like, the dyeing of his hair, like the weird dances.
He had, like, white hair for a while or something like that.
Like, he's all of a sudden, he's, like, very flamboyant and all that. And I'll tell you what, like, I'm, like, thinking... And he's very, like, in terms of everything, like, he does is in Spanish, so I cannot completely, like, comprehend what's happening. But there's something to it, though, like, with the whole social media.
If you stop to watch, I guess it works.
It's just like, okay, like, there's something in it where it's like, okay, I feel like he's just like, okay, I'm not taking this seriously, which sucks, but it's your right, man. At the end of the day, like, it's business.
He's going to make the same amount of money either way. I mean, he's almost stupid to try and give it his all, right? I mean, it's got to be efficient, I guess.
After Jacob's fight, it was like this huge shot of his father being, like, face palming.
Disappointed in him. Yeah. And
everyone's like, you know, Junior should retire. Like, he's nice. Boxing is not for him and all that. But, like, he's still training. He's still sort of in shape. And, yeah, maybe he does drugs or whatever, but again, it's not an excuse or what. I'm not. He's definitely not retiring, and there's still some money in him, you know, like, to be made.
Right. I mean, I think he's always gonna have a name. I thought that exact same thing after the Canelo fight. I'm like, this guy's done. There's no way he gets a big fight again. That was embarrassing. And soon enough, tee up Danny Jacobs. So I mean, he's a name people are gonna watch. Maybe not as the main event, but as maybe on the undercard, people will tune in. So he'll have options if he wants them. I mean, there's still fun fights he can do, I guess. So
Triple G really wanted to fight him. Like, Tom Loeffler and Triple G.
That would not be safe for Chavez's health.
Exactly, and that was back in the day. Like, that was back in 2015. I remember there was, like, talks about that, and Triple G was calling him out in the ring, and that would be such an epic fight. Honestly, I'd still watch it. I made a tweet today. I tweeted, like, because they were talking about Open Air's fight right now, you know, with Eddie Hearn's backyard fighting and all of that he wants to make it all spectacular in terms of background. You know, he wants to make epic backgrounds.
That huge mansion.
Right, and I was thinking, like, fuck, imagine a fight in the center of Brooklyn or Harlem.
Love it.
All the freaking brick mortar buildings around.
Bridges everywhere.
This is like some video game, you know? Like a special location.
It's Mortal Kombat.
Exactly, like one of the Mortal Kombat's, like, locations.
Right.
And like, you put a New York fighter there, like Danny Jacobs, and you put Triple G, who is de facto also kind of a New York fighter because now he's, like, his home base in New York in terms of, like, a Madison Square Garden fight. and you do Jacobs Triple G2 at 168.
I like the idea, and I like the idea. I don't think it's something that's totally unprecedented. Someone coming from a wrestling background, one of the biggest wrestling matches, Jordan Burroughs and Kyle Dake, they fought at Times Square. It was this event called Beat the Streets, and a whole bunch of big wrestling matches happened in Times Square, and everyone came to watch. Center of the city, they all watched outside, open air. They set up a wrestling match. I mean, if that works for wrestling, boxing's bigger.
Yeah. See, but I want to be like in the neighborhood, I wanted to be like somewhere.
Bullets whizzing by.
Well, hopefully not that, but somewhere where like it's very like unprecedented territory, where maybe like a common folk can actually watch it from their windows or something, like something like that, where it's just like, whoa, like where are they fighting? What is this place? Like, oh, we're just in Brooklyn, like something like that.
Well, didn't Hopkins fight in prison? They had a Hopkins fight in prison or something.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think they had some big boxing fight in prison once. So
I know Golden Boy did a Pasadena once at the City Hall recently. But I mean, it's not the same thing, but still. But yeah, something like that. Something with like a little bit of an edge, like, whoa, like this is a real, like it gives you like a feeling of a street fight, with the bricks and all that. And it's just like, I don't know.
If you're going to do it, you might as well do it now because you can't have spectators anyway. So.
Well, that's the point. That's the point, because that's the only time when you can do it.
Exactly.
Man, your beer is really hitting me right now. I don't know why. What is this, Chai Porter?
Mill Street, just up the road, actually. Chai Porter. It's stout with a bit of chai.
Damn. It's
like a mix between a chai latte and a beer. It's not bad at all.
It's delicious, man. I love it.
Got you hooked. You should go up to the factory. It's a cool tour.
What's the factory?
Mill Street Factory. It's Distillery District. It's over a few subway stops away.
Oh yeah, we're in Toronto, Canada, by the way, everyone. If you haven't seen it,
the CN Tower right there.
By the way, we are on YouTube, and if you're not on our YouTube channel right now, because I know I'm posting this podcast everywhere in audio, but like go onto our YouTube and check out our amazing freaking backdrop right now, because we are all coronavirus friendly, safety first, outside, and behind us is downtown Toronto, amazing view. Check it out, everyone. Hey man, I'll check it out. I want to see like a lot of like that's when you mentioned about. Newfoundland. I actually in my mind I pronounce it Newfoundland all the time, but apparently
that's the syllables, I guess.
People say Newfoundland. I'm like, okay, cool.
Well, they have their own dialect out there. You can't understand them at the best of times.
Man. Have you been everywhere in Canada?
I've been everywhere east of Ontario. I've never gone anywhere west of Ontario, but everywhere east, it's been done.
Reminds me of Johnny Cash song. I've been everywhere, man. Have you listened to Johnny Cash?
Yeah.
At one point, I was like so into Johnny Cash.
God's Gonna Cut You Down is a classic walkout song.
God's Gonna Cut You Down. Who had it last time? I don't know. It would be so cool to have a Johnny Cash. I always kind of like when I train, I imagine myself being a boxer. And I was like, what would be my come out?
We've all been there. Walking down the street, going to work, and you're like, all right, let's go.
That would be like, I've listened to this, so that, okay, that would be my come out.
It's like walking by, like, what's wrong with his eyes? He looks so intense.
And everyone would be like, oh my, like if like in my imagination, like if I would be coming out to that song, and everyone would be like, oh my god, it's so badass. Like everyone would be like, what is this song? But like right now, I'm seeing boxers coming out to like different songs. I'm like, what is this song? Especially in England, there's always some sort of like soapy, like mellow song. Like I don't know. I'm always in that DMX kind of shit.
The DMX is good. I mean, Anderson Silva was always walking to Ain't No Sunshine. Mm-hmm. That one United card, I think you were at, Kalunga walked out to that song where he had his own rapper there. It's kind of like the Adrian Boner kind of approach, but it was a cool idea. You got some stuff you can do there.
Yeah, I remember like at the main event, Brandon Cook basically
almost lost.
Refused to go out. I think, he refused to go out at the beginning. Have you been to that fight?
I was there. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, and I was so happy when he finally pulled it off. But man, he had me worried.
Well, let's at the beginning, like when the song started playing, and he refused to go out because it was not his song.
Right?
Remember that?
Yeah.
And I was like, "Fuck yeah, man!" Because I've been on the inside. I've been there. Basically how it happens is they say like, "Okay, you tell that guy to tell that guy to tell that guy that the song's supposed to be here for this fighter." So a lot of shit like being lost in translation.
Telephone, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then at the end of the day, if something is getting messed up, they're like, fuck it, we're just going to play whatever song. And it can really mess up the fighter.
No, I've seen Cook probably fight 5 or 6 times, and every single fight it can't be touched. So I knew something was up. There's no way he's walking out to AC/DC soon enough. It's a power move right there. You don't do that when you're low on the card.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, I see you, Brandon. Yeah,
the opponent standing in the ring awkwardly. What's going on?
And then like, you know what? Like I would be doing the same thing. I'd be like, fuck that. It's not my song. I'm not going on to that song. It's not difficult to put my song on. You have time to like make the call. That's the name of the song. Find it. I don't think there's a licensing problem because, it's not like being broadcasted or whatever. But yeah,
that was the same day as the the Wilder and Fury fight though. So I was like, oh come on, let's go. Let's go.
I remember that. So basically, yeah, Brandon Cook's fight was something else. And again, like I was new to Canada. It's been like 2 months since I arrived to Canada, to Toronto. And like right away, I was like, okay, who's in boxing? I had my friends from the Great Fight North. I'm like, okay, you guys tell me who's in here in Toronto. Who are the players? I'm like, reached out to them, did a podcast with Tyler, and then got into the fight, meaning the fight night. And so the Wilder was at the same time. But when I was seeing like Brandon Cook, I saw his fight with Kanat Islam before and all of that. I was like, okay, Brandon was actually pretty good. Kanat was a little dirty, but it is what it is. Whatever.
Showed his toughness.
Yeah. But it was a tough fight for Brandon, man. But it was just like it was like a punch from God or something, where he broke the guy's ribs.
Well, you see a lot of his fights, and he hits hard, and I think he needed a fight like that. Like his first fight back after the Munguia fight got him out of there real quick, and I think he was pretty upset. He didn't really get an opportunity to test himself. So I mean, I feel like that's the complete opposite. But he got in there, he got his rounds, and sure enough, Corona hit, so it didn't end up materializing too much. But
still, I mean,
it's entertaining
to break the guy's ribs at the very end, at the last moment, just like not like at the very end, but like you're pretty much, you are not having it right now, right? So and
takes one shot, like we were saying, just takes one shot.
Takes one shot. And I mean, good for Brandon, man. But still, I mean, we were all kind of like, oh shit, like it's not happening. What's happening there? You know?
I was worried.
But
There's a lot of good local fighters, though.
Yeah, I mean, Brock Stumpf, man, I'm becoming such a fan. Like he's such a freaking force.
Yeah,
he's a local guy.
No, he's pretty good. He's almost got that Tyson thing when he goes in for the kill. He moves, and you can tell he's just coming in.
It's so crazy, like. Because we had an after party where we watched the actual Wilder Fury fight with everyone, with the boxers, like the whole freaking thing. We went to the hotel and we watched it. Great experience, by the way. It was so cool to watch it with professional fighters. The whole
new perspective.
Whole new perspective, because no one, like, fighters don't talk when they watch the other fighters fight. They may
not yelling, just knock him out. They're into it.
They're into it, and they may be like, will tell you their opinion, like very calmly. But they're like watching the fight, like they're into it. They're mentally in that fight, and
it's a respect factor.
It's respect and experience, and I feel like they're just in it mentally, like they think that they're in there. But yeah, Brock Stumpf, man. When these guys, and those are, I think they were cruisers when they were fighting.
Exactly, correct. Yeah.
And then when they're next to you, and I'm not a big guy, I'm only like 5'10". Freaking giants. I don't know, even the cruiserweights, like, fuck, they're just beasts, man.
It's all muscle, there's no fat.
Yeah, it's just, you can see like completely the fighters prepared for the fight, so everything. By the way, this sound in the background, I don't know what the fuck it is. It's like an electricity sound, but I don't know where it comes from. It's like you can see it all the way there. I don't know how does this work or whatever. Anyways, sorry guys, I'm gonna delete the sound on the background, but we have this electricity sound, and I don't know where this come from. But anyways, apex predators of the fighters. Those guys, I mean, freaking animals. Love it.
No, absolutely. We've got some good ones in Toronto too. A few off the top of my head. We got Nick Fantozzi, trains out at West End, a little bit at Rival. Bigger Italian guy. He's really into Celine Dion, so all his Instagram posts are either him training or him jamming out to Celine Dion. So I guess when you're doing that, you kind of got to be a tough fighter, but he's always in good fights. I've seen him get knocked down, gets right back and knocks the guy out. I've seen that a few times. Always fights tough local guys, no imports from Mexico. He's a good guy. He's nice. A tough guy. Looking forward to how he progresses. Yeah, I'm actually supposed to talk to a local fighter as well. His name is Helmand Alcozai. Okay. He fights at 130, 135. So he's a pretty interesting guy as well. He's developing his record right now. An interesting case. He's a free agent, and he's kind of like, he's not signing with any promoters. He's still kind of shopping around, tries to go to America. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. So we'll see. But I'm starting to like invite boxers as well. That's awesome.
Especially like with the whole veranda thing, which is, by the way, was your idea. I feel like it gives me like a little bit more of a freedom to say like, hey, this is safe. We're going to be outside and talking for like, so yeah, we'll see. Like,
they need a bigger platform at the best of times, so it's needed.
Yeah, for sure, man. Definitely like promoting local talent, because another one is, I talked to you last time on the podcast, didn't get into the recording, but Tanya Ovsenik, like I want to talk to her. I need to reach out to her. But yeah, she's also a local fighter. I think she's 3-0, and why wouldn't should invite her here as well. We can talk. just like local towns, because again, no one is covering local towns in Ontario. Maybe in Quebec they're being covered by local press, but in Ontario it's like everyone is freaking protesting or something. I don't know why.
It's interesting. Let me ask you this. What do you think would benefit boxing more in Ontario? If they shorten the fights, or if there's a consolidation in the sense that the best fight the best?
What do you mean shorten the fight?
Like shorten the fights, like shorter fights. What do you think boxing would benefit more from in Ontario? Shorter fights or a consolidation where the best fight the best?
But what do you mean by
on the same network?
What do you mean by shorter fights?
Same round length, but less rounds. More like amateur style.
I don't know. Like, I don't think they should shorten the fights. I don't think, like, once you're in, you're in. You're watching. Like, it's...
But let me ask you this, okay? How do you build a star?
Mm-hmm.
A star either does something incredibly dramatic, like you look at Jorge Masvidal when he did a flying knee kick against Ben Askren, or you slowly build and you slowly garner more and more people. But the boxing matches are so long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're going to watch a 12-round boxing match, that's like an hour. So you're not going to sit down and watch the 4 or 5 fights before that because they're all 8 rounds too. Like,
So, okay, in terms of, and I like your second question about the developing the fighter, which, by the way, I thought a lot about that. And but in terms of like the shortening the fight, I feel maybe the undercards. It's the matter of like interacting with the customer, because you say like, okay, the fights are starting at 9 p.m. right? And then you put in the freaking 6 undercards and you have to watch through all this bullshit, right?
6, 7, 8 rounds.
Exactly. And then you're like, yeah, but you want to see the main fight, right? So you have to like stay up until 12 to watch it. Like, that's what I hate, especially on the East Coast. On the West Coast, it's like, it's early, like I don't care. It's 10
East
p.m.
Coast, you're staying up till like 1 a.m.
Yeah, and I was like, that's a new thing for me. So that's what I don't like. So maybe you can actually tell them, okay, undercard starts in this, main event starts around this. Like, I feel like the communication to the actual casual fan is important.
Right.
So that's one thing that I don't like. I don't think undercards are important because they're undercards, they're developing fighters, they're developing the brands and all that. Your second question is actually very important. How do you develop a fighter? Do you do Jorge Masvidal, or do you do like a 20-mile march, how I call it? Like, it's a kind of
slow burn,
Peter Drucker, whatever business thing where you kind of like marathoning like through the whole thing. If you can do Jorge Masvidal, if you can do like Deontay Wilder-esque, knockouts or, Triple G stuff, that's awesome. Never hurts to knock people out. But if you are a promoter and you're a manager of a fighter, if you're developing your fighter, like a good example right now, I'm great friends with Tom Loeffler, and I'm great friends with Serhiy Bohachuk, which is his fighter.
Yeah.
And so we talked about it. And I said, hey, Serhiy, like, what do you think about the way you're being developed? Because there's a contrast with Israel Madrimov, same weight category, 154. He's being like freaking pushed out of proportions. He does a couple saltos or whatever in the ring, and everyone's talking about him like he's the best. But he's really like had a couple fights, like less than 10 fights or whatever. I talked to Ryan Scalia and other people as well. I'm like, hey, what's with the Israel Madrimov? Is this really like, what's up with him? And they're like, well, he's a great fighter. I mean, he's not like Mike Tyson. You know what I mean? Like, he's a great fighter, but not greater than Serhiy Bohachuk. Like, they're pretty much on the same level. So I talked to Serhiy and I said, like, hey, what do you think about how you're being developed? And he said, you know what? Like, I actually love how I'm being developed. Slowly and steady, little by little. He has 17 KOs right now out of 17 fights. He's not being rushed into anything, just being developed, and he understands he's a realist. Like, yeah, like I'm like, what about Charlos, man? I'm like, what do you like? He's like, yeah, I'm like, if I'd love to fight them, but like I also understand where I'm positioned right now. Maybe I'm not ready, maybe I'm ready. Like, but I know where my place is. I know where I am right now, and by the time I'm ready, like to actually be in that level, I don't even know if Charlos is gonna be around. But he's like, I love that about me, about my career, because nothing is really being rushed. So I actually, to answer your question, I am supporting the developing of the fighters slowly, Tom Loeffler style, Triple G style, how he's been developed.
It's harder to get eyeballs though when you have two the co-main and the main event, when they're, let's say, both 12 rounds. You're not going to get people watching the slow build guys slower on the card though, so it's difficult. I mean, you look at Mayweather-Berto, like, did we really need to see 12 rounds of that, or could we have seen 8 and maybe you would have gotten a little more eyeballs on guys lower on the card?
Well, that's depends on the fight, though, right? Because the first 5 rounds is like, okay, can you knock him out or not? And after, if it goes to the second kind of part of the fight, it's like, okay, who has better stamina?
Right, yeah.
12 rounds, like before that they had, I don't know the history about it, but before that they had even more rounds, 15 rounds, 20 rounds.
It's too much.
Yeah, so I think 12 is fine. That's why 10 rounds is the standard, and then 12 is the title, two rounds at the end of the title rounds. Yeah, man, what do you think? Like, do you disagree?
To a degree, yeah, because I mean, you look at the UFC, and I know it's a completely different sport, but you're still competing for a similar demographic, and they can still get their point across in 3 to 5 rounds. Like, you know, you look at amateur boxing. I feel like that's almost more exciting to watch sometimes because it's 3 rounds. People get in, they got their action, they get out.
And the fights are different in amateur. Like, that's what they also realize, it's 3 rounds, so the volume of punches is more.
Right. I'm not saying, you know, pro fights, title fight, make 3 rounds because that's too short. But I'm a boxing fan, and there's some fights where I'm like, did I really need to see 12 rounds
of this?
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
And I guess it's a slippery slope because you don't want to say, well, this guy in this weight class, when he fights for the title belt, it's 12, but this guy is going to be 8.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a slippery slope. But in terms of captivating the masses, I think it'd be a lot easier. If the fights were shorter, the guys are going to be more aggressive. You're going to get more of those highlight reel knockouts, and that's what builds stars, I feel like, at times. So, I mean, it's a slippery slope, but...
That's the nature of sport, UFC, MMA versus boxing, is that, well, first of all, the rotation in UFC is much higher volume. You lost the fight, fuck it, no one cares. You're going to fight one more time. You lost another fight, whatever. Like, McGregor lost how many fights? Like, at this point, 3 or 4? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he's 5.
Yeah, and he's still a superstar. In boxing, there's this curse of a 0, like losing a 0. Okay, if you're not undefeated anymore, then like something happens. Like, there's this huge freaking dependency on being undefeated.
That's because of the slow build, though, right? Because they take guys and they slowly build them, and if you lose one of those fights, it's like, wow, like you couldn't beat this guy. But then you could look at guys like Rosado who lose a ton of fights and still appreciate them for what they are, and almost like seeing those guys more.
I know, me too. And honestly, like I don't like the whole undefeated thing.
No,
but when this still adds up to it. If you have 30 fights and you never lost one, and you against another undefeated, like there's still something like, oh shit, someone's gonna lose their 0 today. You know, like it's something is about that in terms of promotion. It's
Absolutely.
It's simply a promotion. But at the same time, look at money in boxing. Yeah. Super fight in UFC versus super fight in boxing. I would say there is around 500 to 1,000% different in terms of purses. Sure. You know, 100 million fights, 45 to one fighter, 55 to another fighter. Versus UFC, 100 million fight, you know, $1 million to one fighter and 500,000 to another.
I mean, UFC, you never know how much they're really making, right? Because it's not disclosed. But I think it's a completely different business structure. Like the UFC, they've got accountants to pay, they've got advertisers to pay, they've got HR to pay.
Oh yeah, it's an organization.
But you know, you look at promoters.
But that's why UFC fighters always want to fight boxing.
Yeah.
Because they know, like, okay, McGregor never made as much money as he made in boxing, as he never made as much in UFC for one fight.
And it's an annoying narrative too. I think.
I'm against it. I hate it
because, like, okay, great. So, sure, we'll take Mayweather saying he made $40 million for Canelo plus $300 million from blah 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 blah, right? Mm-hmm. But then you look at the guys low on the card, and you got some guys on massive cards. Their first fight of the night, they're making $6,000. So, and then you look at the UFC, the first fight of the night, they're making 15 to 20 to show, 15 to 20 to win. So guys are like, oh, all the money's in boxing. It's like,
that's true.
You look at the guys saying it, and they're like, yeah, maybe for guys at like the very top. McGregor, but not for you, this low guy who's fighting low on the card. Like, do you not do your due diligence?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's why I said, like, at the very top, yeah. And that's the thing. We're gonna take a break in a moment.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, I feel like once you're in the middle, somewhere like up and coming, UFC fighters getting more money than boxers. I'm speculating here. Boxers are not getting much money until they're like in the top, 20, I would say. Then they're getting some sort of like a relatively reasonable purses. Yeah. But let's talk more about that. We're gonna take a little pause here, and we'll be back with you guys in a moment. All right, we're live. We're back, everybody. What I was talking about? I already forgot what I was talking about.
Boxing versus MMA pay rates.
Yeah. In any case, boxers should be paid more, because here's what I didn't like. When Mayweather flexes about how much money he made in like 30 seconds or whatever.
It's all an illusion. I don't think he got paid that much, but anyway.
I believe he got paid whatever. Like, let's say he has like whatever millions and millions of dollars. Sure. But when he says like, yeah, like I just got paid within like 10 minutes of fighting or working, I got paid $70 million. But that's not true, though. You were training how much for it? All of your life, you haven't had a drink or whatever? Like, he has amazing ethics and all that. I respect that. But I'm just saying, like...
work ethics, yes, not ethics.
Like, work ethics, like sportsman records, ethics, of course. But that's the thing about boxing, man. You're, like, in the training camp, you're in a fight camp, you're in the discipline camp and all of that. that's your work. You're basically working and you're not getting paid until the very end, and only like if you're successful. That's the kind of thing.
Well, it's like when a plumber shows up to your house and they tighten a few pipes and they charge you all this money. You're like, why? All you did was this. And it's like, you're not paying me for, tapping the tube. You're paying for me knowing where to hit the tube. I mean, how much did it take to get to that point?
Exactly. So, when you're hearing boxers says that, I mean, that's actually, I don't know. I never want to discredit boxers because they're the most hard worker, like, people in terms of being athletes. I feel like boxing is the most demanding sport in terms of being athletics. Like, it takes toll on you like none other sports in terms of being athletics. But still, when they say that, no, they actually work for it for a long time, for at least like 5 months in the camp or whatever, preparation, 3 months and all that, every day, not being paid a single dime, while paying off their trainers or whatever, like the nutritionists and all that, and then only at the end they get their payday. Then they cut off some stuff for their and I'm not sure, maybe you as an accountant can tell me, but like, there's a fee for a trainer, let's say 10%, there's a fee for a promoter, 25%, there's a fee for a manager, 20%.
Sparring partners, coaches.
Then you have taxes. I'm thinking, what goes first, taxes or payouts? Because then you can kind of write it off as expenses if it's before taxes.
Well, if you structure it properly, you'd qualify that as business income, and then you'd pay your expenses.
I mean, it's all
pay your taxes. But if you don't have it running through a business, which I don't, pretty senseless, you'd pay your tax and you'd have to pay them after. But yeah,
which is why they all have their promotion companies.
Exactly.
Whatever. Rosado Promotions or any kind of promotions, right? You think like, oh, you want to be promoters, like, yeah, kind of, but it's also like a corporation, so they can kind of like, you pay checks to promotions. The promotion companies actually pays out those fees to like different people, drivers, for example, and all of that. It's like,
it's not just before the fight too. Like, you look at them and say, okay, yeah, this is how much you're getting, but your window's closing by the time you're 40, unless you're Hopkins. It's an anomaly, but
anomaly. But he also works a lot. Like, he still keeps
hustling.
himself. Like, it's all about nutrition, man.
No, it is. But that's your pension.
Speaking about nutrition, kind of want to do a little brag here. I took a selfie today, and I looked at myself. I was like, damn, I look young. But I wasn't looking like this 6 months ago. I was like, I was 30 pounds heavier and all of that. I mean, I was still looking kind of youngish because I just have this like a baby face. But this time I looked like I was 16, like, especially on Saturdays where I'm like doing my weighting and all that. And I was like, damn, what changed? Because it wasn't just me being skinny, but it also like my skin was so like fresh and like vibrant. And I think like, and what I basically was doing is I cut out all the carbs. And I basically was eating chicken every day. But I think the most important part, I'm just speculating here, but I think it's like I decreased the consumption of red meat by like 95% within the past 6 months. And I think that's like the most thing.
That
what do you
makes
think
sense.
about that?
Yeah, I know I think the biggest thing just from my own research and personal empirical experiences, but water, I think water's a big one. If you drink a ton of water, your skin's going to look better. You feel better. I think that's probably the biggest thing in my opinion.
Crazy thing, man. I looked at myself, I was like, damn, my skin wasn't as good when I was 16. Like I think like right now I have the best skin ever.
I mean, you get older. I mean, when you're young, you're going through puberty and all that. You got the oil.
Yeah. I don't count pimples. Like I had my pimples period like for like 5 years. I still
We've all gone through that phase.
Yeah, but I'm talking before pimples, like right before I hit all that weird stuff. But anyways, it's not like to kind of like say like, hey, look at me, like I look beautiful. But I'm just saying like, you can sort of see the nutrition really works.
Oh, absolutely.
Like that's why you have Chris Algieri. That's why you have all the like the low carb guys. Working for boxers, that it really kind of rejuvenates you, not just like outlook wise, but also physically. Like
health is wealth.
Yeah, man. Anyways, just wanted to kind of like do a short plug in here since we're drinking this beer and
stay healthy.
Stay healthy. This is just a cheat day.
Boom.
But yeah, man, this matters a lot, and I was really surprised, like just to like notice all those changes. Do you actually have some sort of a diet at all?
Yeah, I try and stay away from red meat. I don't really eat too much of that. It's bad for the environment too, and it's not the healthiest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Breakfast, I'm always a big fan of, stuff like steel cut oats.
So what do you have for breakfast? Tell me what you had usually, like during this week.
Half the time I fast, so I literally just have.
Because you look good, like you're like in the shape and all of that. You all put together.
Yeah, no, I think for me half the time it's black coffee and an apple, and the other half of the time it's really not much of anything, just a little bit of cereal, stuff like that.
So you don't eat heavy on during mornings?
No, I try not to. I feel like you're a little more productive if you're not so bloated. You know what I mean? Like you're not weighed down and already tired at like 9 a.m.
What do you think about coffee though? Like I'm still kind of on like I love coffee. I drink it a lot and sometimes maybe way too much. But I feel like Kovalov said once that coffee decreases testosterone.
I've heard that too.
World leaders don't drink coffee; they drink tea.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I understand why sometimes I drink coffee and like my mentality completely switches to like something like over like let's do this and that. Like I'm getting way too excited about stuff. Like what do you think about that? Have you heard anything about coffee, like the effects of it?
Yeah. I never drank coffee. Then I started working in public accounting, and it was like up to like 3 or 4 cups a day. And you see the benefits, but sometimes it just hits you all of a sudden. They all just crash, and you're just like, oh man, I have nothing left.
Yeah.
I mean, ideally, you focus on healthy sleeping patterns and diets and stuff like that, and that takes care of itself. But
what do you think about hydration? Like last time, I was with Sergey Boachuk, with the fighter. And we were doing like pre-fight interviews together and all of that. And then he did the weigh-in. Yeah. And then right away we went to like a pharmacy. Actually, no, like a food grocery store. And he got himself a Pedialyte. And he got me a Pedialyte. And I was like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, oh, this is really great for hydration. And yeah, like so that's... and then I see like a lot of boxers actually doing the Pedialyte. Like Canelo does the pills. Other boxers do like the actual liquid Pedialyte. And I started doing this as well. Like I actually, after my cheat meal day, like... on Sundays or Mondays, I'm gonna go to like a pharmacy here and get myself a Pedialyte. They only sell it in the pharmacies here in Canada. Costs $14 per bottle.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, man, it's expensive shit.
How much is water?
No, seriously. I was like, but I don't know. For me, it's just like a little ritual now, like to hydrate myself.
If it works, it works. I mean, if it increases your productivity and that leads to you accomplishing more, I mean, the cost isn't $14. It's an investment, right?
Yeah.
If it works, it works. I'm not one to judge, but
I don't know. Honestly, I guess that's just the money that I'm willing to burn, but I don't even know why. But just because boxers do it, I'm doing this as well.
If you find it works, I mean, there's worse things to spend your money on. It's not the worst vice by any stretch.
I was doing vitamin water, but then I was like, because when you drink Pedialyte, it's just like it's just like it doesn't even like you can get a flavored one or an unflavored one, and unflavored one is just like a dense water.
Yeah. Basically. I gotta try that.
Yeah, try
Never heard of it before. I gotta try that though.
Yeah, it's actually produced by Abbott, like an actual like freaking biotech company.
Wow. Hey,
it's just
good enough for Canelo.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm not sure what he actually. I know that he does the pills. I mean, I saw it on the video. He does the hydration pills, which they also sell at the Pedialyte has that as well. But yeah, man, doing that and another thing I read from Tim Ferriss. I just read his 4-hour week body. 4-hour body.
I've heard of that one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like drink like a glass of cold water in the mornings.
Yeah.
I was trying that as well. And like all of a sudden I'm losing even more weight. I'm not sure if that's because of that or not. And I was eating all that pizza last week. But still I lost more weight than I ever did because, I don't know, maybe because I was drinking cold water in the morning. Maybe not. But
I think it's strategic. And I know a lot of people, big Asian thing is drinking hot water when you're eating to help with digestion. And maybe cold water wakes you up. So if it's temperature matters, there you go. Heard it here first.
For sure. I'm just like kind of like getting into that, like experimenting with the body. And
everyone's different. You got to try things, see how you respond, and hope for the best.
It's weird with this pandemic and coronavirus. I'm like doing all this weird shit. Like I decided like, okay, I'm gonna like wake up super early and be productive before my work even starts. So I've been inspired by Jocko Willing. Like he wakes up at 4:30. I'm like, okay, should I wake up at 4:30? I tried it once. I was like, okay, it's cool. Like I love that the day is started, but like I'm dead like by 12 o'clock. Yep. I'm like, no, I gotta make it smart way. So I'm doing like, okay, 1 week I'm gonna be at 7 up. Burping all the time with this beer. Yeah, man. So at 7 o'clock I'm up. Then next week 6:30. Then this week I was doing 6 o'clock. Next week I'm gonna do 5:30. But I'm like, okay, so then what? I did the schedule. I read this interview with Mark Andreessen. I don't know if you know him, this investor hedge fund manager in Silicon Valley.
Sure.
The top-notch guy. And he's like, yeah, you got to do the schedule and all that. I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to do the schedule too. Like, okay, like 6 a.m. wake up, 6:15, like to 6:30 breakfast. I'm actually having breakfast at this table, like observing the sunset from, It's like so beautiful. I'm like, all right, cool. After breakfast, work out for 30 minutes. I'm working out. all the way, like, ever since I lost my weight, like, I did 50 push-ups. Now I'm doing 85 push-ups. I'm like, fuck, man. I feel like I'm superhuman. All of a sudden, I can do, like, I never thought I could do, like, 85 push-ups at once. Like, now my goal is 100. I'm like, wow, like, let's do 100 then.
Yep.
So doing the push-ups and all that, the workouts and like different stuff. Just at home, I don't even have weights. See that stone behind me? That's what I'm lifting right there. Those.
Love it. That's all you need sometimes, though, right?
Yeah. I mean, so I'm like freaking like doing this. Like it's pretty cool. Like I'm doing a lot of like plank stands. All of a sudden, I can do 3-minute plank steps instead of like 1 minute. I was like, wow, like awesome. All right, cool. 30 minutes. Then quick shower. Then like after that, what I do then now and some meditating for like 30 minutes. Just like freaking meditating. Today I did 40 minutes, like a record.
Impressive.
I don't know. All of a sudden, like it's just I want to do like 1 hour, like meditation thing. Like I got from Naval Navkiran. He's an angel investor also in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Like I'm listening to all this like freaking startup dudes.
If it works for you, it works for you, right?
Yeah, and I don't know. Maybe it's like a placebo kind of thing.
Well, if it actually works, I mean, it actually works, whether
but like
it's placebo or not.
For mind, like exactly. So for mind is like the meditation. Maybe I'm just like, but all of a sudden I'm like more like okay, like I'm more upbeat, more happy, because like I'm thinking, I thought through all the bullshit that I'm usually thinking during the day, during that 40 minutes, and now I have just like this kind of relaxation. I feel like my mind is like lighter.
Yeah, no, I've been doing a similar thing. I usually map out my weeks, like even like 2-3 weeks ahead, just into half-hour blocks. So that way, and I know Elon Musk does this too, and we can transition to Tesla maybe because we cut some of that out last time.
Good one, yeah.
But I do the same thing, and like that way, you know what you're doing for every 30 minutes, and you know 100% what your focus is, and you eliminate the other distractions, and it's none of this like, what do I feel like doing? I should have done this earlier. Maybe I'll get distracted. Exactly. Now it's like, this is what you're doing, and for each half hour of the day, you focus. You don't think of anything else. If you're hungry, don't worry about it. You got half an hour built in for eating, and my focus has gone way up. It's an interesting technique.
You know what, Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter,
yeah,
he only eats in the mornings, once a day. It's
interesting.
Like, yeah, he said like this is the most useless superpower I ever had. Like just having like a breakfast. I was like, fuck, I don't know if I want to.
Eating takes time, so if you can get out of the way early and it works, and you save more time in the day, good for him.
I mean, it's great. Man,
everyone's got their thing. I mean,
how can you invite him for dinner? Like, I'm just not drinking. I'm not eating.
Get him a glass of water.
Yeah. But speaking of Tesla, man, what do you think about the Tesla stock right now? Like, by the way, S&P 500.
Yep.
Freaking, are you at all like in stocks?
Oh yeah. So yeah, I know decent amount about that. So I mean, it's interesting because right now they just breached the requirement for being included in the S&P 500, being that their annual profits have to be.
How does this happen?
So yeah, there's 2 requirements. So the first one is your annual profit has to be positive, so you have to actually make money. Mm-hmm. And the second one is your previous quarter, you also have to make money. So obviously Tesla wasn't profitable for a long time. They finally.
And then their market cap's supposed to be high as well?
Well, they met that requirement as well. And yeah, they have to have a high market cap. So how it would be is Tesla would actually be the highest market cap to ever just be directly included into the S&P 500. And on a percentage basis, in terms of like the percentage of the S&P 500 they would occupy, they'd be not the biggest ever at it, but definitely up there. I think it would equate to somewhere around like 1%, which is, if you think about it, it's a ton. Now, I was reading some articles from some different money managers, and they were talking about how typically the year after entities join the S&P 500, they typically do worse than they did the year before. So
why do you think that is?
I don't know. I mean,
some S&P 500
growth isn't always like, to get into the S&P 500, you have to be doing pretty well, and maybe growth is difficult to sustain. Yeah.
Would it happen? Like, I'm assuming there's only 500 companies supposed to be there. Who's going to get dropped out?
So they have a few that are like they're talking about would probably get replaced by Tesla, but it's an interesting thing because if you listen to what a lot of like money managers are saying is, since Tesla would represent such a high percentage of the basket, it would be difficult for people to see a huge spike in buying because so many different fund managers are trying to replicate the S&P 500. They have to buy so much, which would, I guess, in the short term drive up the stock price, but also be very difficult because they'd have all these other stocks that they'd have to liquidate to replace with Tesla. It's kind of be an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because we have all these S&P 500 ETFs,
right?
That has all of that, basically replication of S&P 500. And I myself is a non-believer in Tesla stock. I don't believe it's gonna go up. Like I think it's way overpriced. It's very well concentrated on Elon Musk and his brand, and just people are just like believing in that, and all those amateur investors are pumping money in it. But then, like, what if Tesla's gonna freaking crash, and it's gonna get the whole freaking index, down with it?
Yeah, risky. I think that's probably one of the reasons why they're a little reluctant to.
So if you're holding ETF
it.
for S&P 500 and knows and Tesla is actually going to be a part of it, and then has a huge potential with this percentage of the whole S&P 500 to drag everyone down. Yeah, I don't know.
Give credit to Tesla where credit's due. I mean, they're only one of two automakers to never go bankrupt in America. So I mean, give credit where credit's due. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Like Elon Musk always does questionable things, just like Trump, outrageous tweets, stuff like that. Funding secured.
420.
And you're like, all right, he's really good.
Remember he said 420? That was like, whoa, 420. And now it's at 1600s.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, he's really going to get it for that one. And nothing happens, and he keeps chugging along.
I mean, the stock, I remember that when he said funding secured at 420, the stock was around 300. And all of a sudden, like, skyrocketed to 420 because, like, the funding was secured. Like, that's the tweet.
Yeah.
And now it's at 1600.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's crazy to imagine that 420 at that point was like, wow.
That was 2 years ago, a few days ago was the anniversary, the 2-year anniversary. So it seems like such a long time ago, but I guess not. I mean,
I bet those Saudi Arabia companies are like, fuck, we should have actually bought it out.
Well, some of them did invest in Tesla. I have some Middle Eastern companies.
No, but the point was like, we're going to take Tesla private.
Yeah, we should have taken advantage of that.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think of Elon Musk?
I love Elon Musk. I feel like we need more people like Elon Musk. And when I say I don't support Tesla stock, that does not mean I don't support Tesla. Sure. I love Tesla. I want to buy Tesla when I want to get a car, just because I like the idea of it, and I want to see the whole fucking sports mode and like do the whole rocket freaking the
tech is unreal.
Acceleration, all of that. I think people need more people. Like we need more people like Elon Musk. I feel like we have, or in America they have 300 million or more people.
Yep.
And I bet there's a couple more potential Elon Musks, but they just don't have the same opportunities as Elon Musk did. And I don't know what it's just like, like serendipity puts Elon Musk in this like Silicon Valley with the people, with the PayPal and all of that, the PayPal mafia. Elon Musk, I was working before at the foundation that is very heavily been involved in science. And I was talking to like a very established scientists at my company, my colleagues, and I was like, what do you guys think about Elon Musk? Like, isn't he like a cool scientist? And like, no, he is not a scientist. He's an engineer and a business person. And so that what people need to understand, that he has enough knowledge to guide, Tesla, to guide SpaceX, but that's his thing. He's not like he delegates everything to like the smarter people than he is.
And you have to be smart to recognize that you need to do that, right?
Exactly. So he controls everything. He's smart enough to understand what's happening, to kind of like deliver his ideas to the people who can do this.
Sure.
But then he kind of like just steps away. He steps back. And then he focuses on other projects. There's Boring Company. There's Tesla, SpaceX. There's Solar City. There's like a freaking...
The tunneling.
Right, the Boring Company.
Okay,
and then there's the Neuralink. That's his little project as well that he's doing. So, but again, like he's not like, when people think what Elon Musk does, he's not actually like scientifically like doing something. He's coordinating.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's his main thing.
I mean, he's an interesting guy, even if you don't really agree with his leading principles. I think it's kind of interesting that if you think about it, he could have taken all that money from PayPal and just bought a few mansions and just enjoyed the rest of his life in retirement. But there's something to be said for someone that says, you know what, I'm going to take all this money I have and I'm going to try and do something cool that I think is going to better the world. And that's how, that's how shifts happen in our society. And I think it's admirable pursuit that he's on.
Did you hear that story? Like when in his neighborhood, I think he was on Joe Rogan and he said that. It was like, I had a house, and then some crazy people started like jumping the fence, and like it was kind of creepy. So he bought another house like next to his house, and then another house. So he bought out the whole freaking neighborhood.
It's not practical, but you have that money
with his capital.
What to quote Billions? What's the value of having fuck you money if you can't say fuck you sometimes? And
exactly,
that's Elon Musk 101.
That reminds me of Nassim Taleb. I don't know if you're familiar with the guy. I read his book Skin in the Game. I have a weird... In short, Nassim Taleb is sort of this investor who like invests in a bunch of stuff. Black swans is what he calls it. So he basically bets on a bunch of shit that is probably not going to happen, but if it happens, it's massive.
Yep.
So he invests in a bunch of that, and then, like when he happens, like he makes money on that because sometimes shit happens.
Yep.
And AKA Black Swan. And so basically, I don't know much about him, but he's a smart guy. And it was like everyone like Naval Nafkiran was like read his book Skin in the Game. Like, okay, fuck it. Like I listened to this book. Really sounds like an arrogant guy, like a douche or whatever. Like even the guy who actually read the book out loud, it was not him, but like the author, the narrator. I was like, damn, like I kind of get you bring the point across, bro, but like, you don't have to sound so douchey. But like, he was really sounding, and then at the end, like, but I was like, at the end, I was like, okay, so basically, what he's saying, a lot of people in our society are bullshitters, bullshit artists or something. I forgot how he calls them, but like even scientists or whatever, they're just like, yeah, they may be smart, but they're basically are bullshitters. I don't know. You guys read this book. I'm not sure I can explain the concept, but I feel like I understand that. And he says that basically something like the ideal position that you want to be at, where you can say fuck off to everyone. Basically, if you don't like someone and he's bullshitting you, just tell him fuck off. It's not like
it's a dangerous trap. I mean, you surround yourself with yes men.
Don't say it like to everyone. Only say it when you're in this real weird position where you can recognize where he's bullshitting you, and he tries to make sure that like he tries to like present himself as a smart guy, and he's attacking you or something. And I don't know, maybe it's beer speaking or something. But he basically like read this book. He's basically saying, and I don't know if I agree. It really sounded very douchey, but there is some kind of a weird like making sense about it. It's just like, can you imagine like you arguing with someone like in real life or on Twitter, and he's this like person, you know, who is of high rank and has all this credibility, PhD in Harvard and all of Harvard and all of that, and all of a sudden you just tell them to like, you know what, fuck off. It's
he's got a bit of an ego.
He has a bit of. Everyone calls him a douchebag, and myself included. Like, I don't know. Like, I can see why people respect him. People that I respect him. I personally don't know what to think about the guy.
I mean, there's a difference between agreeing with someone and respecting them, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and they sort of agree with him. They recognize that he's smart and he has, like, he knows how to say things. For example, Sam Harris hates him, and vice versa. Sam Harris is this famous neuroscientist, and he's also like this podcaster or whatever. Same with other guys as well. But at the same time, they recognize that he's smart as fuck. So it's a weird kind of way of, I don't know, treating the guy. I forgot what we were talking about.
Yeah, it's an interesting perspective on life. I mean, if it works for him, it works
for him. Oh, fuck you, money. Right. So he's the kind of guy who says fuck off.
All the time.
Not all the time, but if you're trying to argue with him and he thinks,
well, he seems like the guy that would get in a lot of arguments, so I would probably think that he does say fuck off a lot.
He does, and a lot of people hate him.
Yeah.
And that's where my dilemma is, because people that I respect, like the Naval Navkirant and the other guys, Sam Harris and all of that, they're like, even Sam Harris hates him, but they're like, yeah, but the dude is smart. And I was like, okay, I don't like the guy, but everyone kind of like acknowledges that he has something to say that is important. I'm like, I need to like separate the two. It's kind of a weird thing in our society right now.
Yeah, no, I think there's value if not necessarily agreeing with him, but still surrounding yourself with some of those viewpoints. Ever heard of the hedge fund manager Ray Dalio from Bridgewater? One of the principles that he talks about in his book is surrounding yourself with people that you don't necessarily agree with. That way you can listen to what they say and use it to consider how you can justify your argument and make yourself sound more credible. So, I mean, you can take something from everyone.
I read a book recently called something Life in Bets or something. I don't know, but the author basically was saying the same thing, like when U.S. senators or whatever, or actually court judges would be like a Republican leaning, but all their clerks would be Democrats, so that they can all
challenge
of that.
Each other.
Exactly. So I mean, that's kind of like, it's very. I can see why this is important, but I can see why it's tempting not to do.
Right.
You want
your first time being challenged and having to defend your beliefs to happen, and then, you know, in a closed door maybe, and not in public. You want to have those critical.
Exactly. No, I think that's very important, and I feel like a lot of people need that, and a lot of people nowadays decide to be in the more of a secluded kind of things where everyone is thinking the same way, and maybe some points being missed out that you don't see, and people around you don't tell you as well.
I mean, speaking of the Black Swans, I think we got into an interesting dialogue last time before the issues about. No, I'm all right, thanks. About the restaurant industry in Corona. So I guess, what's your outlook on that?
Okay, so I'm walking around the streets. Yesterday I walked around the streets and everything looks good. I mean, we talked about it last time, but basically on Queen Street I see a lot of patios being built up in Toronto. And they're all freaking filled out, and I am actually a bit disappointed in people.
They don't look like they're distancing. I mean...
Well, not only that, but also all of a sudden everyone has money to spend.
Yeah. They've been saving it and
exactly.
not
so
partying at clubs.
Exactly, but they're all there, they're all freaking eating and all of that. It's just like they're really eager to socialize. They kind of like opened up a little bit in me, like, okay, like people are really need they really need to actually go out and see each other. I'm more of a secluded guy. I'm fine with like maybe inviting some people over, maybe going somewhere once in a while, but overall like I'm fine without like going out too much. But some people really need that, and there's a lot of people like that.
It's interesting. I think some people need that as like a justification,
which is very great
to their existence, which is concerning. I mean, I love having friends and going to hang out, but there's something to be said with just staying home and betting yourself.
You gotta make those Instagram photos and post them, man, to make sure that you have friends.
Yeah, people have to know that you're having an exciting life, right? Speaking of Instagram, what do you think? Have you been following that whole TikTok thing going on with?
Oh man,
Microsoft and
trust
Trump?
me, I have interest in Tencent, full disclosure, and I'm not doing well right now because my stock just freaking dropped 7%.
It's absurd. I mean, Trump is making them sell it and then saying, I want a commission. Like, I don't think.
It's weird because I was thinking the same thing. Someone told Pavel Durov is like the Russian guy who created the Russian social network, and do you know Telegram?
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so he owns that as well. He basically like a Mark Zuckerberg of Russia. He was like, that's like a Chinese practice to like close down the whole like internet company and all of that. But at the same time, I'm thinking like, but it's also not the first time. It's just it's the first time that it's an internet company within TikTok. But like if you look about other companies, like Russia, for example, is being under so much sanctions right now. And all the companies cannot do business in Europe and America with the Russian companies, and that's exactly the same thing. So, only thing that changed is the fact that it's an internet company. The precedent itself is already it's really old, like the world. I personally, I've been hearing a lot about TikTok being a Chinese company and like they creating like they're collecting all this data on the U.S. citizens, and I believe that it's true.
I mean, American companies are doing that anyway. I mean,
yeah, but I believe that it's true, and I also believe that it's very hard to explain exactly what exactly they are collecting and how exactly they can use it, especially to the U.S. Senate, because the U.S. senators are just not. I don't think they're able to understand completely how the whole thing works. So I feel like it's easier for them to just block the whole thing.
Oh, for sure,
completely.
Yeah.
I personally like if someone would ask me like, "Hey Samir, do you think we should close TikTok or whatever and do something like what do we do? Like do we like prohibit that or not?" I wouldn't find what to say because I also don't know.
But do the mass populace of people using it actually care? Like, do people care about their personal data, or do they care about being able to put good content out, get people to watch it, justify themselves more, and make their money? Or do they care about privacy? I mean, I think we've kind of, as a society, decided which one we care about more.
I think it's more about, like, no one cares about the kids using TikTok. But, like, let's say a boy told his father, like, yo, like, I'm on this TikTok, and I'm, like, this influencer, check it out. And the dad is like, oh, cool, I'm going to download it. And he downloads TikTok, and the dad is actually a chairman of the S&P 500 company, and and through that he has like texts and emails and all of that, and who knows what. So I think that's the kind of issue. Is like the people who matter basically, like using TikTok, and through whatever data manipulation, through whatever like permissions that they give to the app.
Yeah,
that's where the corporation can collect this. And you got to understand, I guess, and then I have no idea how TikTok works in terms of the corporate structure, but if it's a Chinese company, you're 100% sure that, part of that is the government's property.
Oh, it's like Huawei, exactly.
So I think that's the point, where the data is being used for political reasons, for geopolitical reasons.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you look at Huawei, and when they first started, what the government was doing was they were giving favorable loans to people that were going to buy, Huawei products at a corporate level from their their state development fund. And what's their vested interest in going Huawei? So they can collect more taxes? Probably not. There's probably a little bit more to than, hey, let's collect some taxes and grow our economy. I mean, you gotta read between the lines a little bit. It's pretty obvious. And
Huawei is quite a company because on one hand, Chinese company, belongs to China government and all of that. On the other hand, I bought my phone. I had my old iPhone crashed in Kazakhstan, so I got my phone for like $50. Huawei phone. Just a smartphone, touchscreen camera, whatever HD camera, and 4K.
Yep.
For $50. Right now, iPhones are costing like that phone or whatever. They're like $1,500, $2,000. You can get, it's lower quality product, but functionality is the same for $50. Like, you can see why.
Buy a new one every few months, and you're still ahead on your net expenditures, right? I mean, it's true.
You can see why some companies are a little bit jittery.
That's their strategy, though.
Yeah.
You penetrate the market with low prices, build up your brand loyalty. Then as you slowly start charging more, people are going to say, well, I like this product, or I already had one of these. It's just easier to get another one. And
yeah, man.
It's like I was saying, like, the Chinese government was giving cheap loans to people that were going to buy Huawei equipment at a corporate level, and you get them in for low prices, and eventually you just build the business. And
yeah, man, it's a crazy business. I don't know I'm hearing a lot of stories that I'm reading a lot of stories that China is becoming the geopolitical enemy. Basically, is like a cold war with China is about to start because the trade negotiations went to nowhere. Now there's the whole like TikTok debacle.
Well, yeah, there's nothing new there. I mean, China's difficult. I mean, you have a lot of people saying, okay, China caused the whole coronavirus thing. It's a whole government conspiracy type thing. It may or may not be. I mean, I don't think we have the adequate information at this time to make a judgment about that. But let's say they did. What are we going to do about that? We're going to say, okay, we're going to stop ordering goods from you guys. Okay, so we're not going to order T-shirts from China. We're not going to order electronics. That means all our consumer staples are going to go way up. People are going to get upset because a T-shirt costs, way more than it used to. And the first guy that runs on a platform of, I'm going to allow imports from China again, he's going to win. That whole thing is going to go away. Like, China controls our economy. They can they can say, okay, we're not going to export anymore to you. It's not a huge dent in their GDP, but as soon as we stop taking imports from China, consumer staples, everyone needs them. They all go way up. We need them more than they need us. Like, you can't have an effective negotiation or sanctions when that's the dynamic.
And I think that's the fundamental problem. Like, I don't think it's a good thing.
It's too late.
But that's the thing. Is it too late though? Because
well, people need to have the onus to start buying Canadian products. But I mean, you see no one buying Blackberries. People want what's cheapest. So I mean, as a society, we collectively need to say, look.
It's like this news that recently factories of iPhones were moved from China to India. So there's like at least some diversification to like Indian market in terms of product production and manufacturing. But at the same time, like, you can see why people were like moving to China. Like, yeah, it definitely makes a lot of bucks for everyone, like in the top companies and all of that. But at the same time, like, politically, like, wow, like, since coronavirus started and hit, and then the generic drugs are all manufactured in China, and everyone's like, oh shit, like, we are completely dependent on that. So this is where everyone kind of woke up, and I can totally see the point where, okay, maybe the dependence on China, as painful as it could be to kind of move away from it, it's something that should be done just for strictly global geopolitical reasons.
Well, I think long term it could bring I think it could stabilize the Canadian economy a little bit because, I mean, look, we're going to stop buying so much things from China. Okay, what do we need then? We need to have a lot more jobs in Canada. Less people on unemployment insurance, maybe less of our taxes go towards that sort of stuff, more people paying taxes, maybe costs can go down. Long term, maybe it will, kind of stabilize. I think it's frustrating. I think we need a little bit better of an example from our government. It's kind of frustrating as a Canadian to say, you know what, I'm going to be that virtuous person and I'm going to buy a BlackBerry instead of a Huawei phone. Meanwhile, the government's like doing all sorts of arms deals with Saudi Arabia, who's not a remotely ethical country. So I mean, like, we need someone. The government has to step up and say, you know what, whether or not you guys want to do this, we're going to send a message as a nation.
See, like, I'm not quite sure, like, because I spend so much time in the United States and very little time in Canada, where Canada stands right now with China. I know we have all this weird thing with the United States and China, but like in terms of Justin Trudeau, like his rhetorics in China, like.
Well, China's not a huge fan of Canada because we have Huawei's CFO under house arrest.
Oh, that's true. We talked about it.
And they took the 2 Canadian tourists and threw them in much worse conditions than house arrest. I mean, I don't think China's a huge fan of Canada right now.
Okay, so there is some tensions as well with Canada and China.
Tensions, yeah.
Listen, going back to Canada, to Toronto, like locally, what do you think is going to hit next? Recently, a couple days ago, I read the report for real estate, and to my surprise, we hit the freaking record in terms of home sales and condo sales in Ontario, in Toronto area.
Right.
It's like up to 13 or actually 16%, I think, or more. There's like an official report on that. And I was like, okay, so what's the reason for that? And everyone's like, well, it's because, the articles that I read it, because everyone's kind of they were all at home. Everyone had like too much time on their hands, and they were like trying to like make sure to put their money somewhere that is actually tangible in terms of like, instead of a stock market, to go into the housing and invest there and just like buy condos as soon as possible. At the same time, I'm calling my friend. It's like asking, like telling like, hey, you guys come over with like my friend and his wife. Like, yo, like let's chill. He's a real estate agent.
Sure.
And also he says like, well, yeah, cool. I'm like, what are you up to? He's like, well, you know, the market is actually, the pre-construction is really not good. Like, he's giving me this information that in Toronto right now, the pre-construction market is really down, like to the point where my guy is going to drive Uber to get extra money. So I don't understand. This is this weird, like the report for the month of July is record high, but at the same time, like for the pre-construction, no one's buying it. What do you think, man?
I think it's interesting. I think it's hard to make a judgment this early, but I think I think a lot of the businesses are gonna set the stage for what happens next. I mean, I think if a lot of these businesses stay open downtown and say, you know, we're sticking to our guns, we all want to be right on Front Street, right on Bay Street, then maybe it'll stabilize a little bit and people will still want those downtown condos. But if not, it'll be interesting, I think.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
People may say, hey, look, there's no point in living in Toronto. Let's go live in London. Let's go live in Windsor. Telecommute to work every day. I mean, it depends, I think, what happens in terms of a lot of the big employers, what they decide to do.
I'm really starting to look at the Hamilton area and the area like a little bit outside of, because we talked about it last time. I feel like living in downtown right now, it's a little bit overpriced, especially if if you're working from home.
Oh, sure. You look at what you get.
Yeah.
Versus what you could get for some, like how much the average home price in London's like $700,000, and what's $700,000 going to get you downtown Toronto? Not really much. And especially in the corona pandemic, when I was at home visiting my family, I was like, I'm so glad we have a backyard, and then all these people downtown in condos, can't even go outside, and they've got this little square that they can step out on. Like,
yeah, for sure, man. That's crazy. Look
a little more critically in terms of what they get for their money. But
are you at all in the market right now? What do you think personally? Like, do you want to at some point invest in some sort of a property in Canada, in Ontario right now?
I want to wait and see. In terms of my career, I'm still kind of at a growth stage. I don't know where I'm going to be working in 5, 6, 7 years. I don't know what field, accounting or finance to some degree, but where, for who, it depends. I stabilize my life a little bit, and I think I want to see the housing market stabilize a little bit too. And I mean, look at how much has changed in like less than a year, but you look at how long a mortgage is, it's like 20.
Yeah.
Before you get into that 5, 6 years before you can renew your mortgage, you want to see, okay, is the economy actually at somewhere where I can make a reliable estimate of where it's going to be in the future?
You know, that's what I'm thinking as well right now. Like, I really want to buy something, but I want to buy it smartly where I don't even have to live there, but at least rent it out to make sure that we have some cash flow at least. So I'm observing, I'm looking, and I'm definitely not as bullish on downtown.
Sure.
I don't know. I think
land's always going to have an inherent value. I think there's always going to be a large population density down here, so it's always going to have value. But is it going to have that massive value, $700,000, $800,000 for a condo that's average that we've been seeing? Who knows?
The report also said that the rent prices are going down.
Exactly.
So that's another thing. For two reasons. First, immigration, the students and the temporary people who live in Canada but will move away, and so therefore they have to rent. They're not here because they're not immigrating here because we have a border closed. That's the first reason. And the second reason, we still have a bunch of projects here. Go ahead and open it. It's fine. Let's hear that. Yeah.
Good now.
Oh, there you go. That was a clean one. The second reason is we have all this freaking development all over the place. Downtown, there's like one construction right there. Bunch of constructions right there. You can see the cranes there. The supply of condominiums is still super high with that's why
it was all based on what it was 3-4 years ago, and
they have to finish it.
Seismic shifts can happen quick sometimes.
Exactly. So I feel like at least in the shorter term, maybe in the next year, the rents definitely not going to go up and definitely going to go down at some point as well.
And that's the eternal question too. I mean, everyone thinks owning a condo is sexy and having someone order like, yeah, I own this place. But at some point you have to do your present value analysis and saying like, look, if I buy this house, I'm going to put 20-30% down. That's cash I can't have. That's cash I can't invest. How much more am I really paying to rent? And over the long term, would I be better to invest that money that I would otherwise use in a down payment? And there's also the peace of mind, like you're not having to worry about maintenance to such an extent, or if you don't like it, you can move somewhere else. You don't
the
have
flexibility.
To worry about property taxes. This is how much you owe. This is how much you owe.
Property taxes and the freaking condo fees. $500 per month right now. Like I was researching that, like here in downtown.
You don't just get a mortgage and every month you're paying back your principal and your interest. Like, oh no, you got property taxes,
other stuff
fees,
on top of that,
all this other stuff. I mean, it's pretty much like you're getting a mortgage and also renting on the side.
Exactly, it's ridiculous. So that's where I'm like, okay, maybe I need to reconsider. Either it's too early for me, or I need to strategize and see, how about Hamilton? How about Mississauga? How about other towns, London or Guelph or whatever, These are all the cities that I know by heart. That's the limit of
hey, that's not bad. You hit all the big ones. I mean, places like Peterborough, you don't need to worry about name dropping those. But it depends on what your personal comfort level is too. Like one of my friends, he owns his house and he's a single guy, and rents out basement and one other room, and that's half his mortgage right there. So I mean, hey, he's got an asset, but he's also making some income, and that's how he pays for his down payment. I mean, strategies.
You know what I was thinking too is like, I wonder how we're gonna go further. What if like shit is really gonna hit the fan and we will go wave 2, some spark of like outbreak, and everyone's like, okay, you know what? Cities are definitely not an option. And like I'm thinking like, okay, what about Alberta? Everyone's kind of like
area there. I mean, my family is in London. They're kind of more on the outskirts. Like they kind of live between the outskirts of London and more so like between the city and the country. And there's not too many run out there because your neighbors aren't next door. They're a few hundred meters.
But then if you think about it, again, I don't know what's happening there right now in terms of prices, but you can say, okay, how about this? I have this $700,000 that I was going to invest in some sort of a condo or a house in like Hamilton.
Sure.
But with all this stuff that's happening right now, there's a crop of like a piece of land for $300,000, $200,000 or whatever in Alberta, maybe even cheaper, depends on where. Maybe I should just go get it there, make sure there's an internet and electricity and water, and just sit there and, close to some town. I honestly have no idea how Alberta looks like or whatever, but I'm
a lot of fields.
Yeah, well, just like somewhere next to a small town in the field. I just need the internet and all of that. And just like, isn't that attractive? And then I can just like chill there and work from there.
It is. If you can telecommute, I mean, like
if you can telecommute, I mean, and a lot of companies do it.
Toronto, I mean, how much are you paying for your land? A lot. How much are you really spending on the house? Right? So if you have $1 million that you can spend on a house in Toronto, I mean, most of that's going to land. Your house isn't really going to be that nice. Now, let's say you give it the same $1 million and say, hey, go live out in Lethbridge, Alberta. You can get a big plot of land for not that much money. So the actual house you can have yourself is way bigger. So I mean, again, it all depends on telecommuting and the nature of your job, but
it's not
if
unreal.
You can do that, you're going to get a pretty nice mansion.
Yeah, and there's a lot of workplaces that are actually doing this. Like they're basically telling their employees right now here in Canada, they basically say, hey, you know what? Things are not getting any better. We can't do this on the open space in terms of the startups and all that, how the offices are laid out. We're going to go 100% remote because we tested it out for 3 months and it works. So, you know what? We decided to do this whole thing forever.
Yeah. And if you're not
Facebook
paying like
did that.
Sky high rent on Bay Street, how many more employees can you hire with that money that can go and expand your business?
Exactly, because
could be a good thing for I mean, granted, all the real estate firms are not going to be loving that, but depending on the nature of your business, it could be a good thing.
There's a lot of cost saving there for the companies. Let's say you can get employees. Let's say even we're gonna go local in Alberta. That will the average salaries there is less than in Ontario, and you can remotely hire them. You can reduce your costs by not renting out your office. Maybe you have like a little office space,
satellite office, yep.
And that's a lot of money saving right there per year. So boom, 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 better workforce, less rent, less utility costs, less insurance costs, all of that. I mean, there's
as
a lot
long
of
as we're
benefits.
still injecting that money in the economy to some capacity. I mean, if you're just saving and saying our bank account's going to grow, is it the best thing for the economy? No, but if you're using it to hire
I'm sure
employees that are
the
paying
tax is
payroll
going to get.
well, if they're still paying payroll taxes and you're using the money to do other things, invest in R&D, it's still a net good
I'm
thing
expecting,
for the economy.
yeah, I'm definitely expecting taxes to go up because of all the, how do you call them, our CRB?
CERB.
CRB.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. Everyone's like, "Wow, I get $1,000 a month to stay at home and do nothing." I'm like, yeah, but you don't understand how much your taxes are going to go up. Like I read something saying that every week from not having the TTC, all this other stuff, Toronto was losing like $60 million a week, and I'm like, where do you think that money is going to go? Like, oh, we didn't get that money, no big deal. No. So either one of two things is going to happen. We're either going to get taxed, no one's going to be happy, or we're going to have a politician that's going to say, okay, we're not going to raise taxes, and we're going to have a fiscal cliff, and either way, good luck with the economy.
Yeah. Have you ever tried bow hunting?
I've shot a lot of bows. I've never hunted with a bow. It's harder than it looks.
Have you ever hunted at all?
Birds, like not with a bow. You use a shotgun for that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm just like this Joe Rogan influence. He's all about like bow hunting stuff.
Yeah, he loves his Hoyt archery. And
I did bow. Like I shot some bows. Like, it was pretty cool. Like I had like this professional bow from my friend. He like, hey, you want to try it? I'm just like, whoa, the whole thing looks amazing. But yeah, man, it's pretty. But yeah, as I was saying, basically, is I already forgot. I was saying something that I'm on the center and the Canadian politics. It's something that is really not discussed too much on Twitter, for example.
We're all too polite.
Everyone is polite. Actually, I'm not buying into this whole thing. When I first moved to Toronto and I'm on this elevator and no one even looks at me, even before Corona, to say hi. And
maybe they were from Quebec.
And I'm
just kidding.
No, and I'm from California, and I was like,
well, it's because we thought you were American. That's right. We're polite to most people.
Are you guys really hating Americans? How does this work? What's the general attitude of Americans?
Probably just because we don't like each other when it comes to hockey. Pretty okay with most American people.
As soon as I came to Canada, I went to a hockey game. I feel like within 3 days, I went to see Tampa Bay versus Maple Leafs.
Okay, that's good rivalry.
Unfortunately, we lost.
Yeah.
By the way, have you seen the game yesterday?
They did the exact opposite of what happened to them the previous day.
I haven't seen it, but like Twitter was going nuts. And
yeah,
Instagram
so like
was
2 days
nuts.
ago, the Leafs blew a huge lead, and yesterday Columbus blew a huge lead. So the old Uno reverse card was pulled.
Yeah, like I don't know. I really want to get into freaking sports, but I can't. I don't know. Like boxing is the only thing that makes it for me. Maybe UFC, but like in terms of like watching the games, like
no, I get it because like boxing or MMA, it's like this is not rules. It's like look at hockey. When they don't get along, they don't say, I can shoot a puck better into the net than you can. No, they say, okay, let's drop the gloves and let's figure that out. UFC, MMA, they skip all those silly rules in between and they get right to what matters.
Plus, it's a longer kind of thing. You're not just watching one game. You need to follow like for the whole year. I don't know. Maybe it's a good thing, but like with the boxing fight, it happens and shit's going to go down and there's only like 2 outcomes, maybe 3 outcomes.
Oh, sure. I mean, as humans, we all have that inherent relation to fighting. Like we've all hopefully, maybe not everyone, have all been in some fight to some degree. And there's no complicated rules to understand. Like hockey, it's like, oh, that was offside. Oh, what are they doing with dropping the puck? What? Boxing, it's like, yeah, it looks like he's getting himself beaten up pretty good. You just turn it on, you know what's going on.
You know, it's funny. I was watching this thing on Netflix called The Last Enforcer, or something like about the Enforcers.
Yeah, the Quebec League.
Well, the thing is, because I was in Kazakhstan in last year from America. I went to Kazakhstan, and in Kazakhstan I applied for Canada. And I was like, okay, going to Canada, gotta learn about hockey. I'm gonna be all like this Canadian guy. And so I was like, okay, opened up Netflix, watch a documentary on hockey, and like they talked about enforcers, and I was like, whoa, like this is the whole freaking positioning, which by the way doesn't really exist right now. But there was like this big guys. Yeah, to actually like make sure that they intimidate everyone else to behave.
Oh yeah, each team has its own little mafia. Go to Ottawa. If you've never been to Ottawa, that's maybe one of the most Canadian cities. People literally skate to work. It's like, oh, I gotta go to work. Instead of hopping in the car, you pull in the skates and skate down the river to work. People actually do that. Man. It's amazing. It's like,
see, that's the thing about like I came to Canada. I'm a weird kind of guy. Like I come to Canada. Like my sole goal still is to make sure that I'm successful here. Like I need to work, so I'm working, and I love having fun. I love traveling and all of that, but I also love to make sure that I'm doing something productive. So because of that, I'm not into this happy-go-lucky. I'm gonna go across Canada and go to Alberta and Ottawa and whatever else. Like, but I really need to. Like, part of me really wants to go travel. Part of me like, okay, I need to go to like do my own shit. So I need to really dedicate some time to go to all the parts of Canada because at the end of the day, I'm going to be a citizen of this country. And I actually love this country. This is a great country, and I really want to like. I think it's the beer speaking. I'm like getting all emotional right now, but like this is a great country, and I really want to get to know it better.
Yeah. Well, obviously they don't have it now because of the whole Corona, but I know Via Rail, they usually have like a summer deal where you can pay a certain amount and it'll take you from one end of the country on the other on a train. And trains are fast enough that you're not spending weeks, but it's like slow enough you can look out the window and see our scenery, and you see mountains and you see fields and
yeah,
I want to do that. Check it out.
I want to do that.
Sleep on the train and everything.
Yeah, because it's funny. I've been in the United States for 10 years. I've been to New York, California, Portland, Las Vegas, and that's pretty much it. And I never actually got to see the interstate, they actually like flyover states, the Rust Belt. And it's my regret. Like, I should have done it. I still want to do it. I want to do like the whole freaking, do the Canada thing and then freaking go down to the United States and do that and just see the world because... I feel like I'm in the position where I can finally like dedicate some time and I can afford it to do
sure.
something.
And
like
I think USA too, to a certain extent, but I think Canada, every province has its own unique vibe. Like no two provinces are the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go to different provinces, it's gonna be completely different. Like even Ontario and Quebec right beside each other, completely different. Quebec and New Brunswick, or Ontario and Manitoba, completely different. Like
I only know Quebec for its like separatist kind of attitude.
Yeah, they're not as intense in that as they used to be.
It's like the Texas of Canada kind of thing. No,
maybe a little more intense. They've had a few votes.
Yeah.
It's a completely different culture there, right? It's a little more French, you're more European, which is a breath of fresh air at times.
And which is fascinating because again, nothing like that in the United States.
No, it's the cultural melting pot versus the cultural mosaic, and we're a mosaic, and US is a melting pot, and
right.
Everyone's different, but.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, maybe in Europe there is countries like this. I'm in Switzerland, Belgium. I'm not sure what else. You got, for example, in Switzerland, Italian-speaking countries, French-speaking counties, like whatever. Here in Canada, we have an entire freaking province that is French-speaking. I mean, I don't know. For me, it's ridiculous.
It's like sandwiched in between, like, Newfoundland who speaks English.
Yeah.
And then you've got Quebec. Then you've got Ontario who speaks English.
But at the same time,
it's not like way off to the side. It's the middle of the country.
But it's not like they're speaking French and it's kind of like, oh, accidentally, like we all speaking French. No, they're freaking fighting for their right to speak French. They're imposing all those policies for immigrants. Like if you speak French, like get in here for free or something like that.
Oh, sure. I think even.
Like they have like literally.
Oh, for sure. Even the Olympic hockey team, either as a written rule or as an unwritten rule, they have to have a certain number of French speakers on it.
Wow.
Something like that. Like a certain number of French Canadians, either written or unwritten, unofficially, they have to have a certain number. That's like, they're preserving. And you can't blame them. I mean, it's nice to see, honestly, to some extent, the culture preserved.
After I visited Quebec in December, I started learning French every day since then.
Yeah. We have to learn it in school.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Like Americans, like we had to learn Kazakh and Russian and English in Kazakhstan.
Wow.
But yeah, like it's just like wow, like I don't know, I got really inspired like speaking French.
It's interesting.
Sean, we've been talking for more than an hour.
If there's any listeners left, we appreciate that. I'm sure
someone is still there, but yeah, it's been a great podcast. I really appreciate you coming back and fixing the whole thing because we had some problems last time, but this you still got some time for me, so I really appreciate that. Thanks very much for coming.
Glad to be back on the terrace. I think we had a good time.
Likewise, and we have a great experience with the background. I'm looking forward to make sure to edit everything and see how it works out. But thank you so much. I would shake your hand, but we are in the pandemic right now. Anyways, everyone be safe. This was Azizi Podcast. Goodbye, everybody.